as possible. Oh, thank you. We're being recorded tonight. So with that in mind, please remember, we're all part of the same community. Please be respectful to each other. If you are saying something in a way that you wouldn't say it to someone's face on the schoolyard, or you wouldn't want your kid to overhear you saying it, think about whether you can perhaps pause and say it in a different way. We're here together to gain knowledge, and we are here because we want the best for our Hillcrest kids and for all Oakland students affected by this. This is a citywide issue right now. Everybody's voice and perspective is valuable. We want to hear from as many as you as possible in the open Q&A. Please be mindful. We may not be able to get to every raised hand. We'll get to as many as we can. So please keep your comments as concise as you can, and speak from your own experience. Speak for yourself. Tell your story, but please don't assume you're speaking on behalf of the larger Hillcrest or Oakland community. Remain on mute unless you're called on, and just when we get to that Q&A, go ahead and click that raise hand, or if you're dialing in, you can dial *9, just in case anybody doesn't know how to use Zoom at this point, but there's always room for learning. So I'm sure everybody's going to abide by those community agreements. If that can't happen, we will have to mute people, but I'm sure we're not going to need to do that. All right, that's all I have to say about that.
Muted.
All right, Joe.
Quick snapshot of Hillcrest as a community, faculty, staff. We're close to 400 students, near to 100% enrollment, #1 in OUSD as far as our middle school, 12th in California, and we offer an array of diverse programming from your core curriculum, in addition to Spanish language, library, technology, and music. Going to pass it back to you, Gloria.
Sure. We just wanted to offer, I know this is virtually impossible to see. And first of all, I want to really thank Joe for putting together all these slides on very short notice. So we couldn't make this more readable, but I'm just going to tell you what it says, especially if you're on the phone. This is just a very simple graph of enrollment in Hillcrest over the last 10 years, from 2011 until the last school year. We don't have this school year's data represented here. And basically what we're just trying to show is this is a full but intimate community of about 400 students that's been increasing, a general trend of increasing enrollment over the last 10 years. The pandemic has changed things a little bit, but that's what we basically wanted to show with this graph. And then the next one, again, this is really hard to read, so I'm just going to tell you what it means. These different colored lines represent different racial populations as they are reported to OUSD. So the top line, that purple line, that's the percent that represents the enrollment of white students. The lines at the bottom represent African American, Asian, Filipino, Latino, Latine, and multiracial students. The basic thing that we wanted to pull out from this graph is the fact that Hillcrest is, over the last 10 years, increasing in its racial and ethnic diversity. As of last year, it was just shy of 50% white, and then 50% multiracial or students of color, as represented by those other segments. Still looks different than other Oakland schools. Still a lot of work that we are doing to make sure that this is an inclusive place for all those students of color and students of different marginalized identities. But we did want to point out that this is a school with growing diversity.
So thank you, Gloria. So now to the topic at hand, the moderated questions. For everyone on the line, we've shared these questions with Dr. Gary Yee in advance. Dr. Yee, there should be no surprises here with the questions that are headed your way, and we look forward to working through them one at a time. So let's kick off with question one. Dr. Yee, please, if you can, detail out the specific rationale and methodology for Hillcrest Middle School closure, along with any forecasted financial impact after the school is closed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The specific rationale and methodology, I'm going to put it within the context of the requirement that the resolution that I sponsored along with Shanti Gonzalez articulated. So we basically asked the superintendent to prepare a list of schools that would help enable us to address some of the problems we are having, critical, long-standing problems with ongoing fiscal sustainability. And, from my point of view, Oakland, since about since I started back on the board in 2018, has a structural deficit of around $40 million a year. That's 40 million more in expenditures than that are in ongoing expenditures out of our general purpose fund than we have in the revenue that's provided by LCFF. So the at the same time, when the superintendent's team created the analytic tool, they looked at 4 specific areas. They looked at the general school information, which is much like what you initiated. They look at sustainability. Does the school or the particular program have impact on its own sustainability and on overall on the district's financial fiscal sustainability? The third area, but actually the second variable was quality. Is the quality of the school sufficient to be identified as being successful for all categories of kids? And then equity, are the factors that reflect on the demographics and the disproportionality in various subgroups. Is that representative of the a upward trajectory for the district as a whole? So looking at Hillcrest, none of us as board members had any particular input or impact on the number of schools that were identified. But in fact, Hillcrest came on the list, and it's frankly no surprise that the area that stood out was not quality or not sustainability, because both of those are pretty impressive, very impressive. But some of the issues around equity, and equity is defined by disproportionalities around suspensions and chronic absenteeism and grade differences, and also in particular two resolutions that have been lifted up in Oakland in the last couple of years. The one is the extent to which policies in the district improve or inhibit the racial equity issues historically facing African American students. Of course, hopefully all of us know that the African American population is declining, and Oakland is very close now to a majority Latino school district. So the equity issues were the ones that probably lifted up Hillcrest as a school to be considered, and the ones that were listed in the memo that we received had to do with disproportionalities around chronic absenteeism, and a note about special education, the under enrollment of special education students at Hillcrest. In Oakland as a whole, special education accounts for around 15% of our student population identified, and what I noticed at the Hillcrest, it was somewhere around 5%. So and I did interview the director of special education, and I know that many of you were not aware that the special education was a potential reuse of the available space at the middle school. But the special ed director shared with me that we have an inability to serve special education students, even though there are students in the region that would qualify, and therefore they have to go to other sites. So equity of access to special day classes, especially across the district, is a driving imperative. Right now, our special day classes are often centered in low enrolled schools. And so as you may imagine, we have schools that are not in high demand and that do not have sufficient student populations in the area to fill them. So in order to use the space, we have created some special ed centers, which on the one hand are good because they congregate services in different for different identified groups. And on the other hand, the danger is that they are far away from where the students reside, and they don't necessarily provide full service access to the regular school programs. So the proposal was to consider should the decision to truncate the school to K-5. One option and the priority option would be to consider creating some some special day classes, in particular mild, moderate special day classes in some of the emptied space. And secondly, as you probably know, the governor has placed a high priority, as does the president, on improving early preparation with transitional kindergarten and pre-Ks. And so there is no identified space for that at Hillcrest. And so the possibility would be to add a TK space for transitional kindergarten for the area, and as a specific use for the space should Hillcrest Middle School be closed. So the rationale was not the rationale was not cost necessarily, because I think we're gonna talk about cost a little bit later, or maybe it's in this section. Erica, I know, has been working some with Preston, and I've been pressing Preston as well to give us a clearer idea of the cost of the middle school. And I did talk to your principal, and she did express to me that that much of the infrastructure costs for the middle school is absorbed by the fact that it's a K-8, and so you don't have a separate secretary, you don't have a separate principal, and so forth. So unlike other small middle schools or other schools which bear the cost of administration within the small enrollments, such as a school like Prescott or Grass Valley, some of that cost is mitigated by the fact that it's absorbed by the principal. Secondly, though, I noticed that you have quite a few classes, a full complement of classes for the middle school. So I was curious as to how is it that you were able to afford, I think 3.6 or 4 middle school teachers, and your principal McCormick said that the teachers have other responsibilities at the school, and as a result, it's difficult to determine exactly what the cost is of the staffing in particular. But frankly, what I got today, which was very helpful from Erica, was kind of a number of an ADA number and some of the other calculations that the Equity Allies, I believe, gave her. And so for the last about hour or so, I was processing through that, and I was trying to use those calculations in terms of my own analysis. So I using some of that information. Is this the place where we're talking about the financial analysis? Or is there another spot I forgot?
It is. I mean, this is the marquee financial rationale that I think the community has been largely asking for. And thank you for drilling in. There are other questions related, but this is the the big.
So it's and I believe Erica may have got this too, that Preston has been working on it. The reality is the Las Colitas site and the Hillcrest site are different because the costs are shared across the entire school, and so it's hard to actually tease it all out. So I just sent her what I did in the last half an hour, which I don't know if you necessarily agree or not, but I assume there were 100 middle school students at Hillcrest, and assuming 95% attendance and $9,391 ADA, that about $9,000 ADA was generated by each student, or around $900,000 of that. Preston shared with me that a significant fraction of that is taken off to support central office services. I think around 40,000. So immediately that kind of threw off my analysis. But if you assume that $900,000 comes into the district, and you assume that your teacher cost is about 500,000, and you assume that the shared infrastructure costs of more of the principal and the custodial time and the lunch and so forth share to middle school, then my analysis or my estimate would be that actually the Hillcrest middle school generates around 300,000 or so ADA, not including the ADA going to the central office. So it looks like to me something like a wash. And Principal McCormick did share with me that the mix of contributions from the PTA make it a little more confusing as to what it actually is. But the consensus is that the middle school at Hillcrest is not costing the district anything. It's not a loss center like many of our other schools are. In the fiscal analysis of the elementary schools, you can see the range of loss and restricted and unrestricted costs. And I think, that's what the challenge was. The other thing that became quite complicated in this discussion was the upside down analysis that would be required if the attrition of Hillcrest families outside of OUSD were to occur. So as Erica, I believe, put in her document, the district generally assumes something like a 10% attrition. And Erica was countering with the higher levels of attrition. That's students that don't choose an Oakland Unified School District school, and that attrition by itself would be a potential loss in revenue. And but I pointed out in the analysis that I'm starting to do, and it hasn't been completed yet, that doesn't necessarily account for the savings in staffing or the expenditure side. So the discussion actually has to do with whether or not the attrition rate at Hillcrest is going to be its traditionally high attrition of, I think, around 80 or 85% or something like that, or if it's more typical to Oakland at 10%. So one of the other questions that was asked to me, and I don't know if this is the right, it's in question 4 about if students were to decide to go to other Oakland schools, where they're actually responsible for it. So I did talk to Network Superintendent Clifford Hong yesterday. He's in charge of the middle schools, and he was delighted by the possibility, frankly, of Hillcrest families possibly increasing their look at Oakland Unified's middle schools. And he gave me the example that he participated in himself as a Glenview parent, how the Glenview parents who historically had not chosen an Oakland middle school actually banded together and chose Brewer. And the result is what you see today with the reputational rise of Brewer. So he would like to actually engage with Hillcrest, if that were the decision of closing the middle school, about ways to learn from the practice of the Crocker families and the Glenview families in terms of filling or utilizing as a cohort, as a group, and going to the schools. And I asked him if Claremont and Montclair had space for Hillcrest kids, and he said that he felt confident that both of them did, because you would have an opportunity ticket, which would put you at the highest priority of any of the Oakland middle schools, not only Claremont and Montera, but also Brewer, Met West, and any of the other small middle schools that we have. So he gave me as an estimate, just the back of the envelope estimate, that we would have to get something like 80% attrition, 20% attrition, or 80% of Hillcrest students who come into the district to break even on that. Not counting the fact that, however, that if the middle school were to leave, then the teacher salaries then would be eliminated, since we wouldn't have those teachers. Those teachers would, in general, follow the kids to other positions, and we have lots of different vacancies, and they would have priority at the schools where the students went. But because the anticipated gains by either a TK or a special ed to fill the other spaces, there would have to be a recalculation of what the ratios are. But talking to Sandra Aguilar, the network superintendent, part of the thinking about the TKs is to make sure that your enrollment stays at the sweet spot for a base school, which is around 300 students.
Yep. So Dr. Yu, let's get back to question. I think we've answered part of question 4, so I think we've saved some time. Thank you for that thorough answer on the financials. Yeah. And we'll run up a summary, and I know that the community's got questions. Question 2 was related to, how the process around the comparison districts and data selected to build the financial model. I think you've kind of hit on it, that maybe that wasn't a financial model, of which schools across OUSD were proposed for consolidation or closure. I think a lot of folks felt that there was similar school districts like San Francisco or Emeryville or others that were omitted, and school districts that were included that didn't necessarily represent the diversity that we have here in Oakland.
Yeah, the school services they actually did 2 studies first. They did a central office study, which highlighted that actually our central office services are very, very thin, much thinner than other districts. And they are the ones that selected the 50 largest districts in California. We also did a similar study locally of all of our Alameda County districts, which we can share with you. But the model that was presented was basically using the 50 largest districts, and that question was a little bit confusing to me, because the scattergrams using I'm not sure if we're talking about the same data set. I'm assuming that you're talking about the data that listed the subsidies for each of the elementary schools, and that didn't actually require the comparison with the other districts at all, other than for just comparison services. The scattergrams of the large districts was used to point out that we have the largest number of schools, the smallest average enrollment in the schools, the lowest average teacher salary, and all those are still consistent in our Alameda County.
Perfect.
So
I can have, if you have them, perhaps we could share them with Erica and distribute it. So and sorry to keep moving. We've just got 3 more, and then we got to get to the community questions.
Okay.
This is an important one, and one that I think everyone's been asking, given that cuts and shifts and changes like this have been proposed in the past. So what if we move forward with this proposal that includes schools like Hillcrest, Escuelita, and all the other schools that are being closed? What benchmarks are in place, and the time periods associated with those benchmarks to track and monitor? Hate to call it a success, but the goals of these closures throughout, and that would include increased teacher salaries, increased teacher retention, reduction of student attrition, etc.
Right. So as you know, most of the time that we do this for a narrow region in the city. For instance, when I came on the board, there were 3 schools that were slated for a merger or for merger, and they were the Community United for Success and Futures on the Lockwood campus, and they merged and created one larger school. The Elmhurst United and Elmhurst Community School merged from two 300 student schools to 600, and the CCPA and Roots merged to create one larger school, and then the Kaiser, I guess it's considered a closure and a transfer or merger with Sankofa. So the data on those four schools, at least three of the four that I've been tracking, is actually very positive. I talked to the principal of Elmhurst, who stayed with Elmhurst, and he now has a school of 600. So in the past, he had to beg for staffing for things like community schools manager and psychologist. He has now enough staff, enough ADA or enrollment to fund those, in addition to an assistant principal. CCPA is increasing to its full capacity, and it's becoming an integrated school, whereas before it was only Latino. It's now Latino and African American. The performance levels of Roots and CCPA are as dramatically different as any two schools in Oakland. So the likelihood or the expectation of the African American kids that from Roots who are going to CCPA, their graduation rates and so forth, and ADG is expected to be significantly higher, but we don't have necessarily the individual longitudinal tracking of the school's success. I can also tell you, because I'm very close to the principal who was at Kaiser, Dennis Skykema. I briefed him. I asked him yesterday exactly what was his analysis or opinion of the benefit of Kaiser moving to Sankofa. And Sankofa's enrollment, which was down around 100 2 years ago before the merger, is now up to about 190. And for the new year, he expects it up to about 220. The question was, somebody mentioned sent me an email, yeah, but how many of the Kaiser kids stayed at Sankofa? The answer is every Kaiser kid who applied as a merger, as a transition kid to Sankofa has stayed unless their family moved out of the area. So the possibilities are actually pretty exciting. And the fact is that we saved a historically Black school, a legacy African-American school in an African-American location. So I don't know if that's it wasn't clear to me exactly in terms of outcomes, but we can say that the attrition rates were about 5% higher than the normal attrition rates. So that may be good or bad. We don't know whether we're going into salary negotiations with teachers, but all of us as school board members are committed to identifying long-term money for salary increases that go beyond the state money. We believe that schools which are larger are going to be able to receive more targeted community services probably not Hillcrest, but the other schools that are on the list. And we can tell you that 1840 has provided us $10 million because of the implementation of those that have supported individual students moving and forming cohorts like Glenview to Brewer or Kaiser to Sankofa. That Sankofa has been given extra positions to soften the expected to build community to anticipate higher enrollment, and the schools have actually been given support to be able to identify and the necessary services for those kids.
Excellent. That's excellent. Just a quick touch on 4, and then we're going to bang through 5 and 6, and then get
to keep me going.
Yeah.
All right.
Question 4, real quick, Dr. Yee, just yes or no, is school sponsored busing going to be available for Claremont and Montera from the Hillcrest neighborhood community? or will this be parent dependent?
Well, the subsidized busing has generally been for kids being low income or hardship, like foster or unhoused. The distances are about I think they're under 3 miles for either Montera or Claremont. And so we haven't actually figured out what the expectation would be. Frankly, I think several people are uncertain the number of Hillcrest families that are going to choose. I'm much more optimistic, and I would like to, I would like a commitment on our part to, at least in the first year, to build a bus bridge from Hillcrest to the either Claremont or Montera, whichever one is chosen by the students, by the families. Naturally, I expect also that Brewer would may be part of that. You guys will be pleased to know that Senator Skinner is introducing a bill to provide free busing for all kids in this coming year. We don't know if it's there yet, but we're hoping that the $10 million will be dedicated to answering these kinds of questions. So, even though you have a low income and foster youth and so forth categorization, I don't see why we couldn't provide something which enables the kids to travel together. Because if I were you, I would want your kids to be able to travel together and not arrive at a new school individually when they've built these relationships together. So I have actually marked that one, and it's not only in your school, but in all the schools. Are we going to differentiate between parents who normally drive their kids anyways and parents who live close enough to school to walk? I think that the number of kids who come by vehicle, I believe somebody estimated to me it was something like 85%, 80 or 85%. I don't know that to be true or not, so I don't want to mark it, and I have no idea what people's expectations are. Maybe you could. I mean, we haven't gotten to this place yet. As soon as we determine what's happening next, this list becomes even more alive for me.
Yep.
And I really appreciate
Thank
it. Number 5.
Thank you so much, Director Yee, and actually, thank you for addressing that question in some detail. I think many of us, I know I wish for a day in Oakland where every student could walk to their safe, quality neighborhood school, and that's not the reality in Oakland right now. And many of us do schlep our kids across the city for schools, but we want to try to reduce that as much as possible, especially with the tight-knit school community. Okay, people are being extremely patient. I'm going to ask you to be patient just a little bit longer because we have 2 more quick questions. Director Yee, you have given us a lot of information, which we appreciate. And I might go through these last 2 just a little bit faster so we can get to some of the parent questions. Okay. And Erica, I'm committing to get to you first.
I seriously don't mind staying a little longer.
Okay, I think we're gonna try to wrap around 6 just because we want to, have some boundaries and not let it go all night, not take all night for you, but that's great to know. Okay, so question 5, I think, has been on people's minds quite a bit. As I mentioned at the beginning, for all 112 of us that are on this Zoom, there's 112 stories of, and many, many more across the district of fear, of disruption, of just, worrying about what's going to happen. What has the district done? Has the district done an equity analysis? What studies have really happened on the effect of this? And can you talk about that? And if so, can you please share those findings with our community?
I am embarrassed to say that there has been no equity analysis that I know of to date. I've been talking to people associated to the Black Reparations Movement, but not them in particular, because I did wonder why that analysis, the tool for the analysis, which is fairly complicated, hadn't been entertained by the committee prior to this time. But that's neither here nor there. I've worked on a similar type of work when I was working in the community colleges for dual enrollment and also for our Measure N work. And honestly, there's three things that need to have happened. One is an equity analysis about what it means to stay at your own school. What are the indicators that the district is fulfilling its best practices for a quality education and addressing its own strategic plan for the kids that are going to the schools as they are. And that's the first, to me, that's the first equity analysis that's actually required. The second one is considering whether or not the potential for loss, trauma, and disruption. What are the elements that we can anticipate would happen should the action be taken? And then the third is after the action is taken, what are the disruptions and the issues that affect the kids that inhibit their ability to be successful in the new setting? I refer to the ongoing work that is going on, that is happening right now. I don't know if it's formal, and I will have to follow up on that, but I did interview each of the principals to say whether or not they believe that the overall impact on the welcoming school, welcoming a significant number of students who were new and were different than the kids who had a culture of the school, of the welcoming school, whether overall this was beneficial or not. And they all uniformly said this was a really good thing for the welcoming school, and they believed it was a good thing for the
Right. Joe, I got it. So thank you, Dr. Yee. That's really helpful. I guess what we're hearing you say is that there actually has not been as full an analysis as people are asking for, specifically in the context of COVID. So I just think that's something that we need to note, especially given the speed of this. And we could probably talk about that for the rest of the evening. I'm very struck.
I would like, you would be very helpful to me if you, because the parameters of what is called an impact study have not, in my view, been actually developed yet.
Okay.
And if there are people interested in doing that with me, I'm very interested. I've already begun to recruit 3 or 4 people that I know.
Okay. I think there would be a lot of people on, who would be happy to get involved with that, including some who have their hand raised at the moment. I'm very struck by what you said in the beginning, that this is really not about the financial metrics. It's about some disproportionate equity metrics about how things are playing out at Hillcrest, which I think is something hard that this community actually needs to hear, if there are disproportionate impacts for students of color. But that makes it all the more important to figure out how would this plan actually address those equity issues.
Yeah.
So
just
I want to
just think about that.
Yes, and then I'm going to bring the money question, and then I'm going to get to the
I really
seconds.
wanted to say that that I asked how Hillcrest got on the list, since it was not under enrolled and so forth. And they said the broader metrics that they used included equity based upon the work with the Black reparations and the work with the special ed.
That's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And I think we have a lot more questions about that. But let me just ask, like, the final question that we have for you, and then I want to take our 6 hands that we've got. Do you believe the school board has conducted a thorough analysis enough and provided you with enough data to vote for the closure of the OUSD schools in this proposal, including but not limited to Hillcrest 6 through 8, and on this time frame?
So I would say that the primary responsibility of a school board is to hire a superintendent to evaluate the superintendent's actions and to ensure that the budget is adopted at the end of every year. And frankly, I've been working with Kyla Johnson-Trammell for around 20-some years, and I am so delighted that she has taken the responsibility to do this, and she has assembled the team that she has. And so, I'm relying on the best efforts of the best people that I have contacted, the principals, the staff, Monica Thomas in particular, and Preston Thomas. And I feel like, given the importance of this action, the urgency of of the county and the state requirements for under 1840 and so forth. I believe that that the team is ready, and overall the entire plan is clear enough and sound enough for me to make my decision, pending the decision of my 6 colleagues. And frankly, if I hadn't had the meeting with you earlier in the week, if it was Tuesday night and you came with the questions you had, I would be embarrassed to say, I don't know as much about Hillcrest now as I thought I did, because unfortunately I had an assumption that it was somebody else was going to be responsible, and that I accept the responsibility for it. So I appreciate the press of this group for me to engage more people directly about Hillcrest.
Got it. So as we transition into the community questions, just to summarize, question 1, it sounds like financial impacts were not necessarily how Hillcrest landed on the list. That's a new information, I think, for the group. I think what we're understanding is that this would include special ed. We're not super clear as a community if the school can be equipped in 16 months for special education, or what the funding will be, or how that won't further erode some of the cost savings analysis that was provided. From a TK perspective, we're not clear as a community, I would say, how students would be admitted that aren't TK kids. If you fill up the 2 classes with TK, not sure how, if you're not born between September and January, how you would be admitted into the program. So it doesn't sound like there's too much of a plan there. It sounds like we fully trusted the analysis that was provided by the outside group. It sounds like there was benchmarks put in place for previous changes to the proposal, but none necessarily that can be communicated at this time. Nothing related to teacher salary or attrition or outcomes. It sounds like assumptions and kind of conjecture based on previous analysis. Buses were not included, and if they are, obviously that's going to further erode the cost analysis, but it's great to hear that the principals at both Claremont and Montero will be welcoming. No COVID study was taken in place. We would love to partner with you, Dr. Yee. I don't know if we'll be able to get that done by Tuesday, but if you'd like to work through the weekend, we'd love to partner with you. And it sounds like you know more about Hillcrest, but we didn't necessarily get an answer around your intention to delay or vote no, which is what we're encouraging here today. So we're going to pass it off to the community for questions to ensure that we get a well-rounded response from the group.
Yeah, and we'll look forward to getting that response from you at the end as we do the wrap up. I want to thank our folks with questions for being so patient. We got such great information. Erica, you've had your hand up for a while, please.
Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Yee, for coming out to spend time with us again. I sort of want to take a step back from just thinking about Hillcrest and thinking about this overall cost savings proposal. My understanding is that the core issue is enrollment, and that's what's driving our financial issues. And so any cost savings proposals that we have need to really, really look at the implications of any enrollment changes that would result. And looking through the financial documents, it looks like there was an assumption of 10%. But there wasn't really any sensitivity analysis of, if that's not the correct number, then what is that going to do to the numbers? So I tried to do a back of the envelope calculation on that. And it looks like if we assume just 2% of attrition at the welcoming schools, that drops the unrestricted cost savings from 4.1 million down to 2.9 million. And if the attrition is not 10%, but it's actually 15%, then it drops all the way to $1.3 million. And at the point where you're at 20% attrition, which I think is approximately in line with the attrition that they saw at Kaiser, you're actually losing money. So the ADA loss is enough to overcome the savings that you got from the staffing. And I think we all want what's best for our kids and for the district. And so I think we're really looking for things to get slowed down enough that people can really look at this and understand, because I'm concerned that we feel like our backs are up against the wall in cost savings. So we're going to do this because on paper, when you look at a certain set of numbers, you save money, but there are other things going on that are going to contribute to it. And we're going to start this death spiral that's self-inflicted because we don't really understand what's going to happen. So just to clarify the discussions that I was trying to have with Preston, it wasn't about Hillcrest. I'm concerned that this hasn't been looked at for the district, and this entire effort is going to fail. So I am really hoping that the right people who can look at this and I'm not privy to what the model is, so I'm making assumptions based on what was presented in the financial data. And so I would love to talk to somebody to check my assumptions, check my calculations. But at this point, it doesn't seem like it's a robust enough analysis to even solve the core problem that we're trying to.
Thank you, Erica. Who are we calling on next? Gloria.
We are going to go to Megan next because she's a second in the queue. I think we'll be able to get to, we have 5 people who have been waiting for like half an hour. So we're definitely going to get to those 5. So Megan, go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Yee. I have an 8th grader and a 4th grader in Hillcrest. To piggyback on Erica's point, my question is not necessarily regarding Hillcrest alone. It's about the entire district. OUSD has been closing schools about every 2 to 3 years for decades. And in this particular case, this isn't impacting the budget, even the high estimates that were presented in the board meeting, or the deficit in any huge regard. So my question is around, this is phase 1 and 2. What are phases 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7? And who has determined what that 10-year plan is from a strategic standpoint?
The phase 1 and phase 2 are actually 2 parts of the same decision about a set of schools that we believe will generate something on an ongoing basis of around $15 million a year. So when you talk about the ongoing benefit, and I respect Erica's analysis, but that's why Preston contracted with 3 folks, including school services on the side. Why we have confirmation of the methodology from our county trustee, and our county trustee is actually overseeing any of this kind of work. So the third thing is we haven't actually been closing 2 or 3 schools every year. We've been doing it probably every 4 or 5 years because it takes quite a bit to actually build the political capacity to do it. So this phase is a specific phase. There is no phase 3, 4, 5, 6. This is just to recognize that the schools for 22-23 are the schools that we think we can implement safely and wisely. And the second set of schools, which I believe Hillcrest is in, require a little, not a little bit more, but allow more time to make the plans. So stuff on things like how many TK classes. I think the actual estimate is 1 TK class, how many special ed classes and where the kids will come from, the bus routes and all the rest of that, the busing for transition, and hopefully they giving Hillcrest enough time to build a commitment to lower the attrition rate and have kids transfer to Claremont, Brewer, or Ontario as a cohort. That's the dream. If it doesn't happen, then to make the adjustments along the way so we minimize the amount of disruption. But there is no 3, 4, 5 phases, but there definitely will be. That's been the experience when we stopped the citywide plan, which was something that happened in 2016. Started again with a couple of schools, started again. So, you know, it's not been a continuous closing of schools.
Thank you. Director Yee, are we able to, I know you said earlier you possibly can you stay with us until about 6:05 or so, just so we can get the people whose hands are raised now? And we can wrap up.
I'll do my very best.
Okay, we're gonna whiz through then. So I will make sure at least people who's had their hands raised for a long time that you all get in. Let me do, we're gonna take Janelle, and then after that, just so folks know, Zaria, I'm sorry if I'm not getting your name right, and Rebecca. Janelle, go ahead.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Yee, for coming back. I think, I appreciate you sharing with us that there has been no comprehensive evaluation of past school closures. And I just want to worry publicly about then using rushed anecdotal data about the effects of the closures on the welcoming schools to make these consequential decisions, and to strongly encourage that we turn to the evidence we have from other school systems. And I know that literature very well. It's in my wheelhouse of what I study. And what emerges from that literature is that promises of supports from well-meaning district leaders do not materialize, and it contributes to attrition. And what I heard on the board meeting the other night were from people in merged and welcoming schools that their experience was conversant with the literature on it. And so I worry about what Erica talked about in terms of attrition that we have not accounted for, which leads to my question. In past closures, schools targeted for closure in Oakland have been able to convert into charter schools. Will the district stop schools that have been slated for closure from becoming charter schools to avoid being closed or merged or consolidated or truncated?
Those schools, the example of what you're talking about is like, I'm not sure if this is exactly what you meant, but Lazier and Learning Without Limits were two schools that were scheduled for closure. The communities themselves converted themselves to charters. There was no effort on the school district's part to do that. I, as a board member at the time, opposed that, and I lost. So that is the second question, though, which is related to the district as a whole, but not to Hillcrest itself, is if there is an empty building, such as at Kaiser, does the district have an intention to use it, or will it lease or sell it out, or will it open it up to occupation by charters? You may know that we have Prop 39 requirements to house charter schools, that existing charter schools in comparable buildings. So, that's a debate that will be further on out, but that is not part of the current discussion, nor is it the intention of anybody that I know of on the board to do open a school, to close a school so that a new charter can be formed in that school. In fact, in the last year, we've actually closed 3 charters, and I've been in leadership in making those effective closures.
So I guess just respectfully, I think I was asking a more pointed question, if I may just follow up. And my question is, given the 18 schools that will be impacted by the vote, is the district going to block any of those schools from pursuing charter school status?
I don't believe that's in the legislation. The legislation is if a school is considered low performing, then that school may choose to do that on its own. I don't know of any, and I haven't heard of any. And in my informal conversation with charter school leaders in Oakland, none of them are interested in pursuing a conversion charter.
Right, but I'm asking, if Hillcrest, for example, decides we want to become a charter school, will the district try and stop that?
I don't see how Hillcrest would qualify under current state legislation to be a charter school converting itself. I think it has to be declared as a failing school first. But you're the you have more technical knowledge about that. That question hasn't come up before. This is and you can inform me or send me the potential for that, and I certainly will include it in my thinking.
Thank you, Dr. Yee. Gloria, do we have 2 more?
Yeah, we're going to ask Zaria, and then Rebecca, you're going to be our last 2 questions. We're going to have to ask you to keep those questions concise and just one, and no follow-up, unfortunately. Zaria, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks to Dr. Yee for coming to this meeting, and thanks to the organizers for your effort. There were some very good points that parents have already said, so I don't want to repeat on them. I would like to ask Dr. Yi in my name to vote no, both on Hillcrest and all the other closure schools. As from all these presentations, I've been in all 3 presentations which we've had so far, and I'm not even close to being convinced that this is done in any systematic, rational way, nor something that can be explained well, right? But in the context of Hillcrest, all right, and you told us to tell about our situation. Yes, so our family is also not in the school district, and our kid went in 6th grade in some other middle school in Oakland, and then we were a little bit unhappy about the quality of education in that middle school, and then we applied to Hillcrest, and then get in 7th grade in Hillcrest. So although my kid is not going to be affected by this, I mean, I still find it completely shocking that by far the best school in district is considered for closure, right? So as a person who's done some excellent things in life, I'm talking about you, Dr. Yi, who's been, as we've seen on the first slide, who's been like at places like Berkeley, Stanford, and so on, like you must know how difficult it is to build some excellence. In this context, academic excellence, and how easy it is to destroy it, right? You must have noticed that so far, right? And apparently financials are not an issue here, right? So the only issue that has been raised here is equity. And I'm taking your word that problems with equity exist, but do you really think that closing the best middle school, according to, for example, grade schools, the only school which is above the average by, on these different schools in California, that shutting it down is solution to equity, as opposed to many other things of, building more diverse community.
Thank you. So I think I hope we got your question. Dr. Gary, quick answer to that?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mr. Lucic, your respect for my experience. And I'm basing my decision in large part between my collective professional judgment as to whether this is the right direction to go or not. And so, I think it's been pretty clear that in my co-sponsoring of the legislation that it is the right direction for the district as a whole. And what this discussion provides for me is just an understanding of the total of the commitment that this community and the appreciation of this community for the school that has been created, that provided the education that it did for your kid. And so that's what I would say. I wouldn't do this if I didn't believe in it, based upon my my experience, my research experience, my professional experience, my lived experience, and as a parent who put his kids in Tech and Skyline, and who attended Castlemont himself.
Thank you. Final question, right, Gloria? We're going to.
Yes, that's Rebecca. Marjorie and Marty, I'm so sorry.
I can take a couple more questions. I don't mind.
We're gonna wrap it after Rebecca, and then
Yeah,
I
think so, yeah.
So we have one more, and we're gonna jam.
Awesome. Okay, Rebecca, it's all you.
Okay, thank you. A lot of pressure. Last question. My question, I thank you for coming, Dr. Yi. I really appreciate it. I have a 4th grader and a 1st grader at Hillcrest, and also work in the community caring for children who live in East Oakland. And I think you've mentioned a couple of times the importance of cohorting as the transitions happen for the schools. And we've talked a lot about what happens in this first year with the welcoming schools. And I think my question is, what is what kind of details exist, or what is the plan to ensure that the support continues? And I think I'm piggybacking on what others have said, but really that the support continues, and also that what's the plan to give these communities more information about what the transitions will look like ongoing, right? Like I have a child that will get an opportunity ticket when she transitions out of Hillcrest, and I have 2 others that won't. And so what does that look like for my family specifically, but what does it look like for all of the families in the district who are having now to make different transitions at middle school than they would have before?
Yeah, Yeah, thank you. One of the things that I've been talking to our state legislature, state legislators about AB 1840 and the possibility of it extending the 10 million a year as an offset for the commitment we are making to balance the budget long term. So there's a great interest, and if you want to call Buffy Wicks and Mia Banta, our assembly people, this is a really important way that the state legislature can contribute to the smooth transition for the families. In fact, Director Gonzalez and Director Davis have a resolution coming to the board, I believe, in 2 weeks to insist or to encourage, let's say, the continuation of into the 3rd year of support for welcoming schools, because there is a recognition that there are costs, especially personnel costs that are borne. And as I said before, Nancy Skinner is introduced a busing legislation, and this would be an ideal pilot for how many of our students that will require the transportation. And I'm sorry, but I forgot the other part, but I really appreciate the question, because where you are is where I am. I'm anxious to work with you on the transition, but I'm cautious about doing too much before the vote, because the vote is the way these kinds of decisions are made, the vote of the 7 members of the board.
Thank you. We appreciate your time, Dr. Yee. So in closing, it sounds like your mind is not made up. You came in with an open mind and you exit with an open mind. And we appreciate that. And we appreciate you scheduling this second session with us. Neither were on your calendar last Friday evening as you went into the weekend, and you provided us with 2 to 2.5 hours. So we thank you for that. We as a community, I think, believe that the criteria for closing, Hillcrest Middle School, as well as all other schools in OUSD, is inconsistent. The process was not clear, and this humongous decision requires more time. Zaria said it best: success takes a long time, but you can destroy it in moments. So if you're going to make this change, you better make sure that the data is extremely accurate. The plans for transitioning to other welcoming schools, it sounds like we got a little bit more clarity tonight. I think we need more, and I don't know if we're going to get it by next Tuesday. So we need to slow down the process. Please, let's take some time to really make sure we're making the right decisions. The benchmarks that are in place around the proposal, I still don't believe are clearly communicated. It sounds like we were citing what other schools had done and some successes. They don't seem to be documented, and they don't seem to be communicated. We need to make sure those benchmarks are in place. If we can't do it before Tuesday, we need to slow the process down. We need to vote no. So we're asking you, Dr. Yee, who's been committed to this community for over 40 years in helping build programs like Hillcrest, like La Escuelita, and like so many others, that you take a step back, slow down this process, work with your superintendents and your other colleagues on the board, and take some more time to review the data to ensure that this is a cost savings measure, this is an equity measure, and that the plan can actually fully be thought through. We're encouraging you strongly to vote no on Tuesday and to take more time to do a more thorough analysis. We'd like to pass it to you for final thoughts, Dr. Yee, give you an opportunity to close.
Thank you. Thank you for the remarks. You hit it right on the spot. I have the problem of a historical reference that you mentioned is the same one that any kind of research agenda has, and that is it creates its own biases. And so I recognize that, and one of the reasons I put myself in front of you is I'm willing to challenge my own biases to see if I can improve the clarity of my own thinking. You all have helped me to do that. I now have 2 people that I know I can rely on, hopefully in the future. Dr. Perry, it looks like. I thought it was Dr. Scott, I'm sorry. And of course, Erica, who's working with Preston and myself to get more accuracy on running various kinds of scenarios. I have a small group of people that I'm working with that are not at your school, who have been helping me run numbers as well, independently of anything presented by the district. I just have to tell you that you have the opportunity in this process to meet with me in this way. You also have an opportunity, for better or for worse, to recall me. I've been recalled, attempted to be recalled twice, and there is a process for that. And you have the opportunity to either endorse me in the November election or reject me in the November election. Those are all things that I actually believe in as part of public education in Oakland. The comment around the community charterizing Hillcrest, that one came out of left field for me, and I wasn't aware that that's a possibility, and I welcome Dr. Scott Perry sending me the information on that, and I hope we all spend the weekend in a good space. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. I also want to thank everybody who asked questions. I apologize to Marjorie and Marty, because we want to respect Director Yee's time. But I think what I heard from you, Gary, is that you basically just invited us to advocate and to take action. You told us in your first meeting that you if emails that aren't form emails, you read them. So we will be reaching out. Parents will be taking action over the weekend. You all know through Constello, there's a lot going on. We want to thank everybody for taking the time tonight, and there's going to be a lot to consider before Tuesday. Thank you so much, everyone, for making this a respectful and productive information session.
Thank you, Dr.
Before you sign off, the question I have is really quick.
Marge, yeah, go ahead.
Can anyone check whether pre-K or special ed could be located elsewhere?
Okay, we'll look into that. Thank you. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Good evening.
Thank you.